Philadelphia's bats jumped on Ben Brown early, scoring 3 times in the first inning as the Phillies beat the Cubs 7-2 in Wednesday's series finale. I'm Andy Martínez, and this is the Cubs Daily Podcast, and we'll break down the loss and dig into a special moment for an emerging Cubs reliever. Ben Brown's first inning woes returned Wednesday in Philadelphia. The Reds allowed 3 hits and a walk in the 3-run first inning. If you remember, just a few starts ago, the Cubs opted to use an opener to try and combat Brown's first inning jitters. Drew Pomeranz, the lefty, started against the Reds, tossed a scoreless inning at Wrigley Field, and then Brown came in, threw 6 scoreless innings of 1-hit ball with 9 strikeouts. Looked really, really good in that outing. Then the next outing in Detroit against reigning AL Cy Young Award winner Tarik Skubal, he allowed 2 runs with 7 strikeouts, didn't need an opener, looked very good in that. On Wednesday, Brown exited with 2 outs in the 6th, and he had allowed 6 earned runs on 8 hits with 3 walks, and the Cubs were down 6-1 when he walked off the mound. That spiked his season ERA to 5.71. That type of performance is tough to overcome against lefty Jesus Lazardo, who bounced back after 2 tough outings, struck out 10, allowed just 1 run across 6 innings, and looked really, really good against a really strong Cubs offense. Let's hear more from Brown on his outing.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a grind. They had a good approach. I wasn't really commanding the ball like I should. I wouldn't say it's like a panic outing. It was hard baseball. Yeah, I think that's all the stuff we've been working on, and in tough outings it's going to show out too. And yeah, obviously it wasn't where I wanted to be today, but still grinded through some really hard stuff. So.
Thinking about?
Yeah, just staying on it. There was a lot of bright spots today. I mean, the 5th and 6th inning went well, and it kind of limited the big inning. Maybe a little bit in the first inning was tough, but there's going to be outings like that, and just got to bounce back and give the team a better chance to win. Lazardo did a good job, obviously on the other side, so got to do a better job matching him pitch for pitch, and it just happens. Yeah, I think it's got to be a little bit like it doesn't matter who's in the box, so just got to stick to my approach and my game plan and my movement, and from a physical standpoint. And I think I deviated from that a little bit today, just a little bit rotational, a little bit outside of my comfort zone, and struggled. But at the same time, like, if we haven't been kind of having the year that I've had this year, this would be like a step in, this would just be a grind outing, and we'd wrap it up as that. But things have been, the margin for error has been a little bit smaller, obviously, with what I've been up to, so it's kind of part of it.
Brown has allowed 14 earned runs in 12 first innings this season. That's a 10.50 ERA and a 2.17 WHIP in that time frame. That's just difficult to overcome. You can't dig yourself early holes like that. And really the conundrum that the Cubs face is that they just have to ride it out with the righty for the time being. They've been struck by the injury bug within their rotation so much that you gotta figure it out with Brown. Like, it's imperative that they do that right now. Sure, Shota Minaga had his first rehab outing on Monday in the Arizona Complex League, through 2 innings, looked really good in those 2 frames, but he'll probably need at least, quote, a couple more innings per Cubs manager Craig Counsell. So that probably means that Brown will have to make at least 2 more outings in that time frame in the rotation. And you got to figure it out with him because there's just no clear options beyond him. Chris Flexen has been so good in the bullpen for the Cubs. He started in the past, but he's been a reliever for just so long with the Cubs that he's not really stretched out. And to try and do that, especially over what the Cubs hope is just a 2-start frame with Shota Minaga working his way back, it's going to be hard to do that, right? Like, at most, you're probably going to get a couple innings out of Chris Flexen. Then maybe the next time you get 3. It's just not realistic to be able to build them up in that time frame. So you got to ride it out with Ben Brown and his first inning jitters. Maybe that's doing something like they did against the Reds with an opener or in trying to get Ben Brown back on track. This loss, though, on Wednesday really hurts the Cubs because it gives the Phillies the season series, something that could have playoff implications at the end of the year, tiebreakers, that sort of thing, home field advantage. After winning 7 straight series, the Cubs have dropped back-to-back sets, first in Detroit against the Tigers, the American League's best team, and now against the Phillies, who had come into the series losing 9 of 10. They take 2 of 3 from the Cubs. Here's what Counsell had to say on Ben Brown, Jesus Lazardo, and the loss.
Yeah, I mean, he just wasn't sharp today. I don't think he ever got to a place where he, felt good with his fastball and his breaking ball, and it just kind of led to, a general kind of lack of command, and you saw some big misses, and then when he needed to, just not getting balls to good spots, and they made him pay for that. I mean, it's 3+ pitches. He made it's a really good fastball, it's a good changeup, and it's a good breaking ball. So, I mean, he did have 2 rough starts. That's a good pitcher. Yeah, I mean it's just execution. I mean, we see him clearly has the stuff to be successful in the league. But if there's also, it's a fine line, and if you're not sharp and if you're giving hitters free pitches, and you're not executing, it's difficult to survive and to get through lineups without giving up runs. He did get us 17 outs today, and that was important for the bullpen, very important for the bullpen. And so there was some fight in there that was important for the team. But he just wasn't crisp. It just wasn't crisp today in terms of like the execution. Just a baseball series. The middle game or the first game of the series was a back and forth one. Obviously, could have gone either way, but we ended up with 1 and 2.
All right, I teased an emerging reliever at the top of this podcast, and I want to talk about Daniel Palencia, the flame-throwing righty. Started the season in Iowa, and he's quickly ascended as a key leverage arm for Craig Counsell's suddenly dominant bullpen. So what's been the key to his success? Well, part of it has been better command. I remember talking to Lance Brozdowski and Tony Andracki at the start of the season. I think we even mentioned it on our season preview podcast, and we were assessing some X-factor relievers that could emerge out of nowhere for the Cubs. That happens every year, right? There's a guy that no one thinks about that comes out and is a really dominant force. Last year was Porter Hodge. The year before, you could argue, was Julian Merriweather. It happens all the time. I picked Palencia, and you might say, well, that's an easy choice. Of course, the guy who throws triple digits would be a breakout candidate, but his consistency this offseason was something that he really focused on as a means to try and improve his control. And he impressed in spring training. He was on the trip to Tokyo, was not on the active roster for the 2-game set against the Dodgers, but he was on the trip. He was part of the 31-man travel roster. And that focus, attention to detail on consistency has paid off this season. But there's also a mental aspect to relievers that is very, very real. I spoke to Palencia in spring training, and he told me just how difficult 2024 was for him. He didn't really understand the business side of the game, the minor league options specifically, and at one point last year he was optioned when he felt he was pitching well and felt really healthy, and he was frustrated, he was confused, he didn't get it, and that really weighed on him, and he wasn't having fun playing baseball. He didn't enjoy going to the ballpark, and that's a difficult thing to cope with as a reliever, as a guy who's trying to compete at the highest level and be a factor for a major league team. Those mental hurdles are really tough to deal with when you're all alone in a foreign country. Palencia is another of countless major leaguers who moved to the United States, a foreign country, without really knowing the language or the customs and are asked to perform at high levels. He came to the United States in 2021 from Venezuela and had to learn everything that comes with being in a foreign country, the United States, while not speaking English. Oh, and by the way, trying to compete at the highest level and reach his goal of becoming a major leaguer. Sometimes it's difficult as a Latino being here, Palencia told me during the last homestand. Well, in April, he and his agency Octagon worked to bring a piece of home to Chicago, specifically his parents. It's not easy to get from Venezuela to Chicago, but in mid-May, they were able to get travel through Curacao, the island nation in the Caribbean off Venezuela, then to Miami, then to Chicago, and Palencia went to the airport, O'Hare Airport, to pick them up. It was an emotional reunion, and during the May 12th contest at Wrigley Field against the Miami Marlins, Palencia looked up into the crowd of 32,000 and saw Damaso Palencia and Maria Silva, his parents. It was the first time that they had seen their son pitch on baseball's biggest stage. It was super special, super emotional for Palencia to be able to look up and see his parents who had supported him on his journey to reach the major leagues, seeing him in the big leagues, living out his dream. They were in town for 2 weeks, and it coincided with Palencia's emergence this season. They were in Miami during his low point. You remember that game against the Marlins, first game of the series, where Palencia was a strike away from picking up his first save of the season, and instead he surrendered the lead, then suffered the loss as the Marlins walked it off on Palencia and the Cubs. And then they were there 2 days later when he bounced back. Craig Counsell turned to him in another save opportunity and he closed the door. It was like a whole different sensation being able to come out of the game and hug them and know that they are here. They were more excited than me, Palencia told me. It's always nice having your mom here, Palencia added, and of course it is, right? We all enjoy being around our mothers, and for Palencia especially, it meant home-cooked meals, something that he doesn't get to experience very, very often. His mom cooked him pollo guisado, which is a stewed chicken, his favorite dish, and she wanted to experiment. She had never had salmon and cooked salmon for Palencia, and he said it was super delicious. It's little things like that that can help a player mentally, and for Palencia, clearly it worked. The mental side is very real, and it's helped unlock his potential as a leverage arm for Craig Counsell. You can check out the full story on MarqueeSportsNetwork.com. It's got way more detail and more information just about the cool reunion between Palencia and his parents. The Cubs returned to Wrigley Field after their 9-game road trip for a 4-game set against the Pittsburgh Pirates on Thursday night. Righty Jameson Taillon, who's been, as we joked about in an earlier podcast, Mr. Quality Start, gets the ball opposite lefty Andrew Heaney, who's been really good for the Pirates this year. Coverage starts with Cubs Live at 6 p.m. with Cole Wright and Cliff Floyd. That'll do it for this edition of the Cubs Daily Podcast. I'm Andy Martinez. Thanks for tuning in and listening.